Well, clearly they're acknowledging all of the different opportunities that exist here, and we're getting more and more information each day. They're definitely not being closed lip about this. This is what it says here. Ripple aims to cooperate with banks and expand crypto payments. Now, the bank part we know, right? And I'm looking forward to them going after as many banks as possible in order to fulfill what they said, which is to compete with Swift. In order to do that, if you're going to be a Swift rival, folks, we have to have that realization of Ripple and XRP are going to need countless thousands of banks. OK, and that's what Garling House restated recently that they're going to attempt to do. I also, once again, think that that's really going to bring Swift to the table. I really believe that. I think that's a chess move, to be quite honest. But at the same time, what's important here is this little piece here. I think, in my opinion, it says, and expand crypto payments. Now, that's where people, I think, should probably really focus a lot of research and attention. They're going, in my humble opinion, and this could bring a lot of value to XRP. They're going to expand as widely as possible. I know that sounds like, of course they are, Mick, but no, but we have to get to the specificity of what we're talking about, which is payroll. Don't forget that. Payroll, general value traceability. All right. Now, a lot of companies have excessive amounts of waste, excessive amounts of payments where they're not completely sure where these things are going or what happens to them at this point or that point. It's not going to be that way anymore, because what has been happening, a lot of the businesses have been coming together and saying, listen, we want to know what money we can reallocate, not money, but value. We want to know what value we can reallocate, because what have businesses been talking about in a lot of these interviews and articles when they're coming together, they're looking forward to technology like DLT and AI, and later on in the future, quantum computing. If you've seen what's been going on with that, there's been a lot of a massive amount of positive developments there. That's going to be implemented. We even saw a bank test quantum computing out recently. That's a heck of a huge leap, in my humble opinion. That's a lot of progress. But they want the technology to bring a massive amount of value so that they can finally thrive. A lot of businesses from top to bottom have been struggling lately, but in doing such, DLT, Ripple, XRP, Chainlink, any of these Bankcoin companies that does this is going to be flooded with value because of that consistently. It has to be consistent. The payments and things like that they're talking about that they want traced, whether it's through payroll or specialized funding of different projects or such, that's pretty consistent, right? And so it's going to boost the value that's on chain throughout the year. And so when we're adding that together, so you have businesses that are going to do that, small, medium, and large. You're going to have banks do that, commercial banks, central banks. They were bragging about that lately, the whole central bank thing, which is nothing new at all. We'll see what they actually unveil. I'm a show me type person. Prove it to me. You have that. Then on top of that, then RWA, which a large part of that RWA value is going to come from a lot of these asset managers, because they're going to put things on chain. We've seen it already with a variety of different things they've been testing out. And then so you add that value. We're already talking trillions upon trillions of dollars that could possibly be accessed. And then let's not forget. Now, I almost did. You almost let me forget. Governments. Folks, I can't iterate it enough. There's so much value there. Governments and their militaries. I want to say it again for effect, because it's just, when I think about that, it's like, wow, the opportunity that's there is major. Governments and their militaries. Now, let me put the government aspect to the side a little bit, concentrate on military. There's so many things that they claim around the world globally. They want to trace when it comes to these militaries, as far as spending, sending equipment here and there, etc. And so certain things just go poof. They don't know what's happened to it. That's what they claim. It's what they claim. Doesn't mean you have to believe them. They want to be able to trace that. They want that capital. They want to know where that capital is going. They want to be able to play with that capital. They don't want it wasted, is what they claim, right? So you have this global movement all of a sudden, if it's real, all of a sudden. That also will be on chain. Now, how deep Ripple and XRPL will go with that, if they get specialized contracts or private contracts, we will have to see. But look at the setup, though. Okay, so they're coming out. They're talking about all of these things. They've also come out over the past few years about Ripple, speaking about their different relationships with a lot of these governmental entities. Right? They have Ripple. They've shown a proclivity toward getting close with a lot of these leaders of countries and central banks, right? All right. So when you have such a proclivity, that would lead me to believe that you're going to be trusted to a degree. And if you're trusted to a degree, then I don't understand why you would not be on that list. If you're at the forefront of the technologies, to be able to get private contracts with militaries, that's a lot of capital. If you look at the spending, militaristic spending. Did I use that word correctly? Military-based spending. The things that they pay for simple things, like, we pay a certain price for a fork. They pay a vastly different price for a fork. I'm just using it as an example. They pay vast amounts of capital for things, and there's a consistent spending that is done there. So if that value is being tracked, traced, or sent through this system, I mean, I don't know how they're going to set this up. If they just use it for traceability, does some of that value move through the system? I'm not certain on how that's going to work, but I'm sure if I'm Ripple, I'm going to make the push for something like that, where the value moves across a private rendition of or iteration of our system. Hence why they have the private ecosystems that they've built, that they, as far as we know, they've yet to use. So what are they saving that for? Of course, a lot of the banks are going to use that for their wholesale CBDCs, but also never forget the military applications of the technology. Never forget it. The military is already deep with AI, certain AI applications. It will flow, and Ripple, sorry about that. I'm jumping from one thought to another. I have so many thoughts. Ripple was one of the earlier ones to talk about integrating AI, but they've never, well, at least I haven't seen an update on that. Have you? So why are they doing all this? What is it all leading to? The only reasonable conclusion that I can draw is that if Ripple, I'll say this, if Ripple is anything like myself and they think similar, their team is drumming up thoughts of actual domination, that they will expand in every single way possible, I just said, in order to maximize the value that they're bringing in. It's the only way to make everything that they've gone through worth it. It's the only way. Now, what does that mean for XRP's price? That means that there is no one on earth right now that can estimate the max potentiality of XRP. There's no way to know. I think with these bank coins in particular, and that's not every utility coin, but these bank coins in particular, I think they're going to shock a lot of people. And I believe they have much more potentiality than most people are realizing. I think many are looking at a piece, and I'm not saying I'm beyond looking at just a piece, seeing the tree and not seeing the forest, but I'm trying my best to see as many parts as possible. I think here more than ever, when we're thinking about XRP or anything like it, XRP, Chainlink, Solana, XLM, it doesn't make a difference. Here, it's most important to think with 300 or perceive with 360 degrees of mind. I really believe that. So anyway, it continues on here. I had all those thoughts on just that piece, but it continues on here. It says that the Garling House brand Ripple also stated that it is discussing possible participation in the Advisory Council on Cryptocurrencies. They're weaving themselves. Look how quickly they're attempting to weave themselves into the systems of the United States, which any advisory council, the first thing they're going to say is, I think that the first things that will come into Ripple's favor when it comes to that is the fact that it was a part of the Faster Payments Council, one, and a Faster Payments Task Force, two. Despite the different frictions that have existed between cryptocurrencies and some regulators in the past, still Ripple had a great relationship with certain governmental entities, right? And helped them in certain ways, although they did not give them the golden key. And you know what I mean by that, right? So they assisted these different, governmental entities, one, and certain banks also, two, but they didn't give them enough for them to surpass Ripple. They didn't give the legacy system enough to surpass Ripple. What they did was give them a sample, a taste. And now those businesses, those entities are addicted after the sample. Yes, I'm phrasing it like that. Yes, I am. They got a sample. They're addicted. And now they need more. They cannot produce the what they need themselves. They must come to Ripple or these other Bitcoin companies like Algorand, etc. These now financial advice, these prices, there's no way they don't skyrocket and go intergalactic. There's no way. But let me read the rest of this. My apologies. So they're discussing possible participation in the Advisory Council on Cryptocurrencies, which was, it says here, this can be an important step to increase trust in the company and attract new partners. And I was saying that. A lot of what they're doing right now, I believe, is to bring in those scragglers, or was it scragglers or stragglers? So somebody out there is correcting me right now. I appreciate it. But to bring in those businesses that are not into the technology yet, and it doesn't mean they're not aware of the technology. No, they're just sitting on the side. They're unsure. And one thing that they're unsure about is the work that their employees have to put in, training, cost, etc. Which in the next few months, this is what I'm saying, probably towards, and I said this before, probably towards the middle and the end of the year, maybe we're starting to hear more significant announcements, okay? Because that will be enough time for Ripple and these other Bitcoin companies, if they hit the ground, and they must put in the work to allay or assuage the fears of these companies. Oh, Ripple will tell them, hey, this doesn't cost a lot. We can save you a lot of capital, especially in the long run. This is going to give you more security, things like that assuages these individuals. So they'll have enough time to have done that. Right now, they're still trying to catch up. Remember, a lot of their business was outside of the U.S. before. We're getting all these barriers removed. Now the barriers are removed. Well, you have some work to do. That doesn't mean work wasn't done before, but there's even more now. And sometimes I think from the viewpoint of these companies going out and hunting down the business, but it's not necessarily always that. The way that these articles have been presenting to us the position of these companies lately, and you tell me if it's different. This is what I've been reading. The companies seem desperate. They seem as though they know. And once again, of course, I know you're telling me, Mick, the central bank's been telling them they have to get with the technology. You have the whole ISO thing. Swift is putting pressure on them. Everybody's putting pressure on them now. Then you have the pressure of just generally wanting to make value, and everybody's saying crypto's going to make value. Then they're not sufficiently involved as of yet. So I think a lot of what's happening now probably is maybe Ripple and these Bitcoin companies, and I'm just playing with ideas. Maybe it's not this way, okay? But I'm thinking logically. I'm using things that have happened in the past. I'm using my own experience of certain things, and it brings me to this point of thinking that they're probably getting inundated with a massive amount of phone calls, emails, and meetings that these businesses want to have with them. It just makes perfect sense. A technology that you need that you couldn't have before, you struggled, and now you're on the verge of collapse. A lot of banks are on the verge of collapse. They're in trouble. That has not changed. They're just keeping that news quiet. I have my apologies. When I pause, I have 5 thoughts at once. Does that happen to anyone else? I had a conversation with someone the other day, and they were adamant that you can only have one thought at a time. And I was just like, well, that's just not the way that I think. I don't know every person. I don't proclaim that everybody thinks multiple thoughts at once or thinks one thought I don't know what other people do. But this person was adamant that no, everybody thinks one thought at a time. And I'm like, right now, I paused and that came to my mind because I had 5 thoughts all at once. And I'm like, well, which path do we go down, Mick? What do we talk about now? I don't know. I would love to know that. Anybody else think in that way? Anyway. So they're probably getting inundated with a massive amount of attempts at meeting with them, making contact with them, because these companies need that technology now. They don't want to be left behind. All of the major authority figures are telling them they're going to be left behind. So that's a little bit of my thoughts. My apologies. We got all of that from that one paragraph. There's so much information being put out here. They go into stable coins, etc., but we don't have time to delve into that right now. So let's go here, okay? Let's go here. Wait a minute. I may need to skip an XRP article here. Garlinghouse is once again predicting. You know what? Let's not skip it. Ripple CEO Brad Garlinghouse predicts XRP ETF launch in 2025. I don't see how that's hard to fathom. At this point, there's nothing holding XRP back anymore. Now, everybody's going to hit the ground running with business and getting things done. The golden age is almost here. A few more things need to be smoothed out, not with XRP, but just crypto regulation overall. Everything's getting smoothed out. Give it a little bit of time. Once it's smoothed out, then the train starts rolling, in my humble opinion. I'm not talking about price because certain things still need to be done, but that will come in time. And I think it's going to be quite meteoric when it does occur. But it says here on March 27, sorry, my apologies. On March 27, 2025, Ripple CEO Brad Garlinghouse announced the expectation of an XRP ETF launch in the second half of 2025, according to a tweet by Crypto Rover. Okay, so listen. When I think about ETFs, one thing that always comes to my mind is familiarity. There's a lot of outsiders. They don't know anything about XRP. We do, but don't let that comfort in that high place that you're at, and you definitely are with the knowledge that you have. You're in an advantageous position over many, many people. But don't let that lull you to sleep into thinking everyone knows. No, they don't. Although XRP is gaining in popularity, a lot of these people, especially these big money companies, big money people, are not familiar with the tech. If they get into something here, like an ETF, they're researchers. 1, they all have paid teams of researchers. 2, they're analysts. They're paid good money. They're going to have to sit down with these entities and say, listen, this is a moneymaker. This is going to be big in the future, but this is what it does. Because they're going to ask, logically, what is it? What are we investing our capital into? Because we're not here to play games. We're not here to lose capital. What does it do? And to understand what it does is to understand why in the future there will be sustained rises in price. So if they get into the ETF, which I think in time will be wildly successful, they also will come into the knowledge of XRPL technology, which could then result if they learn that it's the best of the best, which right now it is. All the bank coins are up there with each other. They're all the best of the best as a family. That could lead to more businesses getting involved in the utilization of the XRPL and XRP, which would boost that price up even more. So when I look at the ETF, I look at it as a doorway in that particular way. Make sense? All right. So now there's so much information coming out, folks. I could talk for a while on those topics. There's so many different pathways. But let's go here because we have some more big stuff happening with Bitcoin. I'm ready for Bitcoin to lead the way, explode again, make a lot of value again, because I know it's right around the corner. In my humble opinion, that's just how I feel. Now, This article is titled, South Carolina Proposes New Bill Authorizing Up to 1 Million Bitcoin Investment. Everybody wants a piece. It adds to the bullishness. Each day, Bitcoin grows more and more bullish, more and more positive. So now let me read this a little bit to you. South Carolina lawmakers on Thursday introduced the, quote, Strategic Digital Assets Reserve Act, unquote, a bill that would allow the state treasurer to invest in Bitcoin and other digital assets up to specific limits. The bill, also known as H4256, so now you can look it up, permits the state treasurer to invest unexpected funds from the general fund, budget stabilization reserve fund, reserve fund, and other state managed investment funds in digital assets. Investment would be capped at 10% of total funds under management with a maximum Bitcoin reserve limit of 1 million Bitcoin. How many other states you think are going to do that? I think all of them are going to get involved. Now, something interesting to keep in mind. Let's see how funding goes. Federal funding. Let me clarify that. Federal funding goes for these states over the next few months. There's going to be a lot of different activities happening. Some of that funding could be cut significantly because there's so much friction politically. And so we know that the values are being utilized as pieces on the chessboard. So a lot of federal funding could be removed from certain states, and that could result in them looking towards something like in the future as a fail-safe of sorts, an alternative, where if federal funding at any point for any reason is removed from a state that they could rely on something like Bitcoin, yes, they will liquidate it. That's why I said when it comes to the states, I don't see them holding Bitcoin any longer than necessary. Although their activity in Bitcoin will still boost up that price significantly, in my humble opinion, not financial advice. But let's say federal funding is dramatically reduced, if not completely removed from certain states for whatever reasons, then they could, in future times, lean back on something like liquidation of Bitcoin to fund certain things. I mean, it's possible, right? Am I just jumping out a window with that? I don't think that that's far-fetched. So, in thinking in that way, I believe a lot of them will get involved in Bitcoin out of let me not have excessive verbiage. They'll get involved with Bitcoin out of necessity. They're going to need an alternative. There's a lot of states that the way they want to do things is opposite to what the federal government wants. And so anyway, that could be very positive catalyst for Bitcoin. Now we're going to close out with this here. I've been trying to take my time and think a little and give you the most clear, most clear thoughts possible from my mind, So now, which I've been feeling much, much better doing things that way, just taking my time. Maybe I pause here and think clearly. I feel much better. I feel good when I give powerful thoughts clearly, in a clear way. Now, we're going to end off with this one right here. This article is titled, Market is Underestimating How Quickly Bitcoin Will Hit New All-Time High. I agree with that I think it's going to be, I don't see how at some point, I don't know when, at some point, Bitcoin just doesn't explode. And with it, the rest of the crypto market will go with it. The catalysts are just too potent, powerful. It's like, I have to be careful what I say on YouTube. I don't want to take a chance to say what I was about to say, but I was going to paint a certain image of how powerful and potent Bitcoin is. It is that. It says, a crypto analyst says Bitcoin may reach $123,000 by June, really, in a best case scenario, if it tracks the average return from its DXY backtest. We've heard others iterate something similar lately. Bitcoin will break past $109,000 all-time high sooner than expected despite the recent volatile U.S. macroeconomic conditions, according to a crypto analyst. Quote, the market may be underestimating how quickly Bitcoin could surge, potentially hitting new all-time highs before Q2 is out. Unquote. This is coming from Real Vision chief crypto analyst Jamie Coots. This is what he's telling Cointelegraph. All right. So, we'll keep our eye on that. We'll see. Bitcoin and crypto as a whole right now, in my humble opinion, is in a very, very good position. So now that you have that information, what are you going to do with it? I know what I'm going to do with it. So until next time, everybody, let's get to the money.